in a world where young adult novels automatically become movies, the most average one last year gets a sequel. So yes, Insurgent is a sequel to Divergent, which I didn't find Divergent all that bad. Like I said, it's a bit average and a little bit forgettable, but I sort of liked it a little. There is some big issues that I had with Divergent that were still kept unanswered in Insurgent, so that doesn't make me like Insurgent that much, but Insurgent is a far better film than Divergent. I have to agree on that one. With that in mind, Insurgent still has its flaws and still isn't as great as it could be. Let's face it, it's definitely no Hunger Games. Insurgent picks up right where Divergent left off, with our heroes on the run and the whole society and the fractions being chaotic and in dysfunction and just a mess. Of course, Kate Winslet's character is still alive, and now she has found this box which she wants open, which supposedly has messages from the founders of their entire society. And only a Divergent can open it. So of course she needs our main hero from the first one. Of course. That makes sense. And meanwhile, all these different subplots with our characters are developing, and a whole revolution from the factionless might get started. So that is Insurgent in a nutshell. Now, there are some things that Insurgent did well that Divergent didn't do as well. I liked a lot of the action sequences. Now, they're not to the point where that's absolutely amazing, but I thought they were handled very well and handled with efficiency, and done a little bit better than Divergent. And Divergent might have a little bit more action sequences, and the training stuff was pretty interesting, but Insurgent overall is a little bit more action-packed, a little bit more fast-paced than Divergent, which makes sense because it's the middle movie of a trilogy, which is undoubtedly going to become 4 movies, because if it's going to stay the same trend as all these other young adult novels turn movies, then the last movie is going to be split into 2 parts, whether it needs to be or does not need to be. Just like Divergent, there's a lot of different ideas about the characters, about the world, about the city they are living in that are interesting, and there's a lot of different subplots that get started in this movie. And the subplots are interesting, but they really don't go anywhere. Shailene Woodley's character was pretty well developed in this movie, and she was an interesting character by far, and some of it is a little cliched, but then again, what in this world isn't cliched when it comes to movies or books or any media? A lot of the acting in this movie was very wooden, and it felt like no one wanted to be there. It felt like people were just going through the motions just to get another paycheck, or just because they were in the first one and they were obligated to be in the second one. On that same note, there are 3 people that I felt did do really well in the acting department and felt like at least they gave a shit. While some of them weren't great acting throughout the entire movie and didn't give 100% every single time, they were the most consistently good. And of course, the 3 main actors that did the best throughout this movie, or at least the most consistently good, were of course our main character, played by Shailene Woodley, Miles Teller, and surprisingly enough, Jai Courtney, which, granted, he has the stereotypical villain, and he was way better in Divergent. He was more intimidating. He ultimately is pretty much our main villain in this one too, because let's face it, Kate Winslet is just... don't get me wrong, she's a good actress, but in this movie, like I said, it felt like several actors and actresses in this film Just felt like they were going through the motions and just were very wooden. One of the major problems I had with Divergent is that they really didn't specify or explain in detail what it means to be divergent. This one tries to solve that a little bit, but ultimately it's still not enough, and it still makes me wonder how a divergent. It just doesn't quite make sense. To be honest, if you think about it really carefully, you'll realize that this doesn't make sense. It goes against human nature. Divergent is something that feels like it should be everyone in this world, because a class and a faction doesn't make a person. And you could choose, and even when... I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense. It feels like people are divergent in nature, and the fact that divergents are very rare in this world doesn't quite make sense. And the ending of Insurgent tries to make it more sense when they sort of copy the same exact twist, practically, of The Maze Runner. So yeah, if you've seen Insurgent and The Maze Runner, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But overall, it still doesn't quite make sense. But if you take it as just a average and just sort of dumb but entertaining sort of movie, you might like Insurgent, and you'll just not care about the whole flaws of the Divergent and the theories that just don't quite make sense. Now, I have to give Insurgent credit for developing their main character, because, let's face it, that is one of the most important things to a movie. I just wish that they weren't completely reliant on several dream sequences. And I don't mean like simulation sequences. I mean legitimate dream sequences that our main character continues to have. I wish there was just a better way they can show the character's fear, doubts, and worries, rather than just show another dream sequence over and over and over again. Now, seeing the trailer of this film, I was not looking forward to it that much because I was worried about the simulator sequences, which made it feel like it didn't matter at all, and it's just a virtual reality video game. In the first one, it did make it matter, and thankfully in this one, it does matter, because she has to go through these simulations to end up opening this crazy box that only a Divergent can open up. And so it does make a good climax, and it is cool and fun and entertaining. Now, there are some instances where the CGI she almost looks like CGI Neo in the Matrix franchise, but overall, I think the CGI was pretty good. Yeah, Insurgent is still pretty entertaining. It's still fun. There is plenty of flaws, plenty of holes, and plenty of things that just don't quite make sense. But overall, it is a better movie than Divergent. And so, with that in mind, I'm giving Insurgent 3 stars. People will probably hate it. People will love it. I'm just somewhere in the middle. I still feel it's entertaining. I still feel it'll be a good movie to watch again. And it's way better than Divergent. So, have you seen Insurgent? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. If you have not seen Insurgent, then what is your favorite young adult novel turned into a movie? What's your favorite one? Mine would probably be somewhere in the Harry Potter series. Probably. So, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.